So I decided to make this video here because what else am I going to do at work? Work. um, Shitty audio as a result, but I don't know what's compelling me to do this anyway, so it doesn't have to be good. Um, well, I do know what's compelling me, which is just years of people who I've overheard, who have talked to me directly, who just misunderstand the purpose of a conductor. This dates way back to when I was like in fucking high school, and a friend of mine is like, well, if the musicians knew their parts, then they wouldn't need a conductor. It's like, okay. So we're talking about orchestral symphony performances, okay? Um, there's other situations where you need a conductor. I just don't really know that one as much. I'm going to try to go through it and put it into perspective for people who might not understand why. Because, you go see your favorite rock band, they don't need a conductor. Right. Well, point one, not everyone in the orchestra can hear everyone else. There's 200 of them, right? I don't know if you've ever heard somebody play trumpet 3 feet from your face, but you're not hearing much else, first of all. You're going to be hearing the people who are immediately surrounding you. If you have a cue from someone who's like, first flute is what cues you to come in, too fucking bad. If you're sitting directly in front of like a row of trombones, you can't hear everyone, okay? Whereas your favorite rock band, they have these fancy little things called monitors, either in-ear monitors or floor monitors. They're not just jamming up there. They have a whole system so that they can hear everybody else, because similarly, I don't know if you've stood in front of a fucking full stack guitar amp, you're not hearing anybody else. There's no way in hell. So different things. So that's point one. Point two, I've prepared a couple metaphors because you have to understand. And I should preface this by saying, like, I'm some fucking guy. Like, I dropped out of music school, so I know enough. But I'm going to try to explain it in a very simple way, okay? So when you approach a piece of music, let's say, what's a good example? I guess it doesn't really matter. Just whatever, like some Beethoven symphony, probably not nine because I don't want to talk about choir shit, so it doesn't matter. His fifths? I don't know. So, your orchestra with all your people are going to perform this piece. First of all, Beethoven's not around to tell you how to play it. All you have is sheet music. You have a bunch of dots on a page with direction. So it's like, okay, how fast do you play it? Say movement one is allegro. Allegro isn't a specific BPM, right? And so if you just told all 200 musicians, play this at allegro, they're all going to play at slightly different tempos, first off. There's a whole shit ton of interpretation that goes into reading a score, okay? It's not like a MIDI grid where everything is exactly one-to-one. You hit play, it's always going to be the same, right? There's sheet music is very, very open to interpretation because the context of the musical world when it was made is so different than it is now. Techniques have changed, definitions sometimes change. Not only that, but there's so much that you have to read between the lines, okay? And you got 200 people in an orchestra, they're not all going to agree on that. That's where the conductor comes in. The conductor is there from the start, the inception of the orchestra learning that piece, because all the musicians need to know it, right? They need to know the notes, they need to know the changes, they need to understand what's going on. But when there's a part that says retardando and it slows down, by how much? How quickly? Those little things times 1,000. Say you've got a string part where there's like accents. How hard do you hit those accents versus the normal notes? The score doesn't say, right? The conductor will, because the conductor's job is to have a very thorough, comprehensive understanding of music, both music history and music performance. That is their job. And they will be there from stage one to direct everyone's playing. It's not just they show up and, oh, the guy's going to wave a stick around. They are the ones responsible for how the piece sounds, how it feels. Because if you go to Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, if you listen to 5 different performances by 5 different orchestras, you are going to hear 5 different pieces, right? It's the same notes, but you're going to find one is way faster, one is way slower. Sometimes, like, the dramatic high points are way, way fucking louder than somebody else's. That's the conductor, okay? That's not the orchestra. That's not 200 people hive-minding like fucking like a Reddit thread. It's like, there's no way in hell 200 people could coordinate that. That's not how humans work. That's the job of the conductor. It would be like, assuming that that's just a person who goes up there and waves a stick, that would be like, say you're working in a kitchen, okay, at a restaurant, and some random fuck comes in and is like, we need 3 number 3s, a number 8, and 2 number 1s right now. And the people are like, that doesn't mean anything. Because the conductor doing all the stuff, his hand gestures, and when he's like pointing or, doing some of this shit or some of this, that's not showmanship. That means something. But it will mean different things to different people, because guarantee in performance, say you've got a percussionist who's rolling on the bass drum, or timpani. We'll call it timpani because it's Beethoven. Boom. It's getting louder, right? And the conductor, he's the one doing it higher, and cut, right? Ahead of time, they would have established he's talking to the fucking percussionist. He's not talking to the trumpet player, right? Which, sure, you could extrapolate that, maybe. But again, it's like that times 1,000 for every detail of the piece. There will be cues that you have to watch for that some conductors wouldn't even address, and others are very, very specific. There's another articulation that I can't think of the name of. It's like the little whoop with a dot, right? And that's like, hold the note for a amount of time. And again, on a MIDI grid, you don't have that, because you hold it and then the note stops. But in classical, you hold that until it feels right. And again, 200 people are going to have completely different interpretations of what that means, which is why you defer to the guy up front so that he holds that note and then everyone cuts at the same time. And that conductor's version of how long that note should be, completely different than somebody else's. So you very much train with your orchestra to build it up. Or to use another metaphor that I'm probably not going to get right because I don't fucking know, sports! Do you want me to explain music using sports? So football, that's a sport, right? I presume that the coach, captain, coach, the coach, and the players work really hard behind the scenes so that all of their plays are super tight, so they've got good chemistry, so everyone knows what everyone else is thinking, right? And it's the same with an orchestra. And similarly, if the sports people go to a big sports game and the coach isn't there and some guy fills in and he's like, all right, just like we practiced, remember, play number 3 or whatever. I assume there's like names for the different plays, right? Like you would name a certain, if you have a target, a thing that you're trying to achieve, you would go about it a certain way, and so you'd call it like a specific play, right? I think they yell it before they throw the ball. I don't know. I've never played football. It would be like some random fuck coming in and be like, all right, guys, yup, number 3, just like we practiced. And they'd be like, that doesn't mean anything, right? Maybe it does to us, but it doesn't to you. And it's the same shit. It's those performances, orchestral performances, literally could not happen without the conductor. Not only because they're responsible for thousands and thousands of microscopic decisions that shape the entire form of the piece into something unique so that you never get the same performance twice, and also because, yeah, if you're sitting beside a fucking swarm of trumpet players, you're not going to be able to hear what the hell's going on over there. And if there's like something's happening in the violins and you're sitting on the other side and you've got trumpets or trombones or whatever, I'm picking on brass because they're loud, blasting your fucking skull, you can't hear it. You have to see it visually. That's why the conductor's counting bars and cue you in and do stuff. That's their job. But it's so much more than that people don't understand. Like, you really, as a conductor, have to have a comprehensive understanding of music history and music theory in order to realize the piece the way, to the best of your ability, the way the composer would want it to be played, right? And the conductor could very well have knowledge about that composer that others don't, and it will shape the form of the music. Here's like a weird music example. So you think about like Baroque music, like, or like early medieval music. Not everyone knows that back then the ideal vocal tone was completely different than it is now, because the Romantic period shaped what we think is a good vocal tone. You know, the nice rich oh with the vibrato. I have not warmed up, so it's a shitty vibrato. But before that period, in fact, probably as far, like even when Mozart was around, the ideal vocal tone was a very woody, thin, absolutely no fucking vibrato, right? So it was like this oh, like that's nope, sorry, no vibrato. Oh, just completely straight. That was sought after until the Romantic period, when they reshaped how to do singing. They decided that. Somebody decided that. And it was, I believe, the same with string instruments too. You didn't want that nice warm vibrato when you're playing strings. You just wanted this stark, plain tone, right? So when people go back and they play Baroque music with all the nice warm vibrato, that's wrong. It's wrong if you're playing it the way the composer would have wanted, because techniques changed and conventions changed. And again, it's like that times 1,000 for every little detail in every little piece. There's like so much artistry that goes into composing. And it's not like I'm an aspiring composer or anything, or composer, I mean, well, conductor. There's so much artistry that goes into that. And it's just, if you haven't seen that and you don't understand it, it's just like, oh my god, where even the sticker on? Why can't they just play? So I'm hoping that I can explain this in a way that's simple to understand. I used a sports metaphor. You know, I'm going really far outside my comfort zone for that. Just in case you don't know. I'm sure there's explanations on YouTube, but probably not from some washed up metalhead who doesn't know how football works. So I guess that's unique. Yeah, it's cool. It's cool shit. And I just, in case you didn't know, I thought I would share. So, yeah.